The risk he took after being laid off. The call was brief, the explanation rehearsed, and the ending unavoidable. Layoffs are supposed to be clean, a business decision, a line item adjustment. But when they arrive, they land personally. In today's economy, even strong performers discover how fragile stability really is. And when the job disappears, what comes next is no longer theoretical. The question that once lived comfortably in the abstract, what would you do if you had to start over, suddenly becomes immediate and unavoidable. The answer, whatever it turns out to be, has to be lived rather than imagined. To understand the risk he took after being laid off, we need to look at what he lost first. His role wasn't just income, it was identity, routine, proof that his effort had a place to land. One conversation erased years of structure, the daily cadence he had relied on, the meetings, the goals, the rhythm of a week with defined shape, vanished in a single afternoon. What remained was time without architecture and the uncomfortable freedom that comes with it. At first, he did what everyone does, updated documents, reached out quietly, scanned listings late at night. The practical steps were familiar. The emotional weight was not. Confidence wavered. Momentum stalled. Time suddenly felt expensive. Every day without progress felt like a day falling further behind a standard he could barely define, but could feel acutely. He understood intellectually that job searches take time. He felt something different, urgency without direction. The safe move was obvious. Find something similar. Restore predictability. Rebuild quickly. But beneath that logic, another thought surfaced, one he had ignored for years. The layoff hadn't created uncertainty. It had revealed it. He had been operating inside a structure that felt stable, without closely examining what that structure was built on or whether it was serving him at the level that mattered most. Losing it forced a look at what had been there all along. He realized he could return to the same structure, or he could finally confront the question he had postponed. What if this disruption wasn't just a setback? What if it was an opening? The same disruption that had removed a professional foundation was also removing the inertia that had kept him from asking harder questions about his direction. Both things were true at once, and recognizing that dual nature made the path forward feel less like a recovery and more like a choice. And in that pause between endings and beginnings, he made a decision that surprised even himself. The first instinct was restraint. Protect what remained. Minimize risk. Regain footing quickly. Everyone around him reinforced that logic. Take the first reasonable offer. Don't experiment when stability is already gone. Layoffs, they said, aren't the time for reinvention. They're the time for recovery. And on the surface, that advice made sense. Recovery is responsible. Recovery is expected. Recovery signals to the world that you are handling the situation maturely, without drama, without indulgence. He understood the appeal of that signal. He also understood that recovery without reflection could return him to a version of his working life he had already outgrown. But something about returning immediately felt wrong. He noticed how quickly fear tried to shrink his thinking, how urgency pushed him toward familiarity instead of fit. The same roles he once tolerated now felt heavier. The same environments he once accepted now felt limiting. The layoff had removed comfort, but had also removed denial. He could no longer pretend that the structure he was returning to was the right one, simply because returning to it was easier than imagining something else. With time suddenly visible, he began examining his patterns. What work energized him? What drained him? What skills he built quietly but never prioritized? The answers didn't point toward a safer version of his past. They pointed towards something untested, not dramatically different, but meaningfully redirected, close enough to his existing foundation to be realistic, far enough from it to require genuine effort and genuine belief. The risk wasn't dramatic. No bold announcement. No overnight pivot. Just a decision to delay the obvious move, to invest in learning instead of rushing into replacement, to use uncertainty intentionally instead of escaping it. The difference between those two responses, escape and intentional use, is where the outcome was determined. He wasn't avoiding the job market. He was approaching it differently, with a question in hand rather than a resume on autopilot. Financial pressure, made the choice harder. Every day without income sharpened the stakes. Doubts surfaced constantly. Was it strategic or irresponsible? Was patience a plan or avoidance? Without structure, self-trust was tested daily. He had to make peace with the ambiguity of progress that didn't show up in visible, measurable ways, at least not yet. That kind of peace is harder to maintain than it sounds. It requires returning repeatedly to the same conviction that the direction matters and that the short-term cost is worth the long-term alignment. But gradually, momentum formed in a different way. Conversations deepened, skills aligned. Ideas once dismissed as impractical began connecting into something coherent. The layoff had removed one role. It had also created room for another to emerge, not by accident, but because he was now paying a different kind of attention to what was forming around him. Still, the tension remained unresolved, because risk feels different when it's chosen after loss, and the margin for error feels much smaller when there's no safety net left. The pressure intensified as savings thinned. Time stopped feeling neutral and started feeling sharp. Each decision carried weight now. Every hour invested had to justify itself. He oscillated between confidence and doubt, sometimes within the same afternoon. The freedom to choose came paired with the fear of choosing wrong. And without external validation, progress felt invisible. He had no manager confirming his direction, no team reinforcing his decisions, no institutional signal that what he was building was real, only his own judgment, tested daily under conditions that were deliberately uncomfortable. This was the real conflict. The layoff had removed structure, but it hadn't removed responsibility. In fact, it amplified it. There was no manager to set priorities, no timeline to follow, no clear signal of when effort would turn into return. Only the discipline to continue when reassurance was absent. He discovered that self-direction under pressure is entirely different from self-direction in comfort. Comfort makes initiative feel optional. Pressure makes it feel essential, but also terrifying. He had to learn to move forward without the certainty that forward was the right direction. He questioned whether the risk was worth it, whether rebuilding slowly made sense when faster paths existed. Friends shared openings. Recruiters circled familiar roles. Each option offered relief. Each also pulled him back toward a version of work he no longer wanted. He weighed the offers carefully. He declined most of them, not because they were bad opportunities in any absolute sense, but because accepting them would have meant closing the question he had finally started to answer. What kept him moving forward wasn't optimism. It was ownership. He wasn't reacting anymore. He was designing, testing ideas, refining direction, learning at a pace comfort never demanded. The risk sharpened focus. The absence of fallback forced clarity. And slowly, competence replaced anxiety. Not the competence of someone who had mastered a familiar domain, but the competence of someone who had learned to navigate genuinely uncertain terrain, and had done it without losing the thread of their own direction. Then came the shift, not a breakthrough, but traction. One project led to another. Conversations turned into commitments. Effort began producing signals, small at first, then consistent. The uncertainty didn't disappear, but became manageable. He had not solved the problem of uncertainty. The risk he took after being laid off hadn't fixed everything. It had changed who was responsible for the outcome. And that realization reframed failure itself. Because when risk is chosen intentionally, even setbacks carry information. And that made the final outcome less about luck and more about alignment. The result wasn't instant security. It was durable direction. Work stabilized, not because risk vanished, but because capability grew. He didn't return to the same role he lost. He built something adjacent, shaped by what he had learned during uncertainty. The layoff no longer defined the break. It defined the pivot. What followed wasn't smoother. It was stronger. He trusted his judgment differently now. He evaluated opportunities with clarity instead of fear. And the confidence he carried didn't come from stability. It came from navigating instability without collapsing. That form of confidence is different from the kind built inside comfortable structures. It is tested confidence. His story reflects a reality many avoid acknowledging. Layoffs don't just remove jobs. They remove illusions. about safety, about loyalty, about control. And once those illusions fall, what remains is choice. Not comfortable choice, not clearly marked choice. Not every risk pays off financially, but every intentional risk pays off in insight. In a world where disruption is becoming normal, the ability to choose direction after loss may be the most valuable career skill of all. So what do you think? When stability disappears, do we retreat or finally choose? The risk